Hello BookTube, this is Kelly and you're watching Books I'm Not Reading. Before I begin this book review, I just want to say kind of the mantra of my channel, if you've ever actually made it to the end of one of my videos, is be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Certainly not trying to say the author of this book, John Baxter, is a bad person or we should inflict violence on him. I'm just saying, like, if you are like me and this is the kind of book that you would pick up in a bookstore, don't. So this is A Year in Paris, again, John Baxter, and you can see my Eiffel Tower bookmark. And this was in one of Steve Donahue's mail hauls, and I was watching it with Jason, and it was on Jason's iPad, and you can kind of tell, like, when Steve opened it, like, he's like, so this is for people who already love Paris. Me! And so I told Jason, I was like, oh, if Steve decides he doesn't want it, like, or if he wants to send it to me, you know. So Jason made a comment, and lo and behold, this, along with another Paris book, came in the mail. And it's just so funny because this is totally the kind of book that if I saw in a bookstore, I would be like, can I really justify $18 on a paperback? But, you know, it's got French flaps and beautiful pages and like A Year in Paris, season by season in the City of Light. The back of it says, every month reveals a new shade of the City of Light. It's such lies. And I realize those are all things that John Baxter may have had no control over. That may not have been what he wanted to call the book. He certainly probably didn't write these kind of marketing things to promote it on the copy of the book. But that is not what this is. And I think because of the way it's presented, I was expecting something very different, and that made me really mad. So when I hear A Year in Paris, I think, and John Baxter has lived in Paris for more than 20 years. He's written a bunch of books about Paris, one of which I didn't realize until I started looking at this, I've already read, which is called An Immovable Feast, Christmas in Paris, which I actually didn't like. So maybe John Baxter and I, like, when it comes to Paris, we're just on a different plane. The truth is, Paris, like, empties out at Christmas. Everybody goes to their family house in the countryside or whatever, and there isn't anyone. Tourists have, like, the worst time just finding, like, a place to eat. Those kinds of things, because they just think, oh, like Christmas in Paris, like, it would be so beautiful. Well, guess what? All the Parisians leave. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, I read one book by him I didn't like, but, you know, definitely going to give this a chance. And I also really felt grateful to Steve for sending this to me, and so I wanted to review it regardless of the outcome. So again, A Year in Paris, I think that means you're going to tell me about one of the 20 years you've lived in Paris. Or maybe a year in the past, a historical year in the past or something like that, and a year in your own life. And I'm also assuming that it's going to be by seasons, right? Like that it's going, like all of the things about spring are going to take place, like they're all going to be, I don't know what season he's going to start with, but that's what I'm assuming, that it's going to go month by month. And instead it is all over the place, okay? All over the place. The dates have nothing to do with it. And at the beginning of every chapter, there is a little epigraph. I hope that's the right term. And it has a place, it has a month, sometimes a day, sometimes even an hour. It has the year, the temperature. Anyway, so again, I mean, I assume that John Baxter wrote all of those, but some of those take place during the French Revolution. So they're not, and there's no like quote, like there's nothing underneath it that says this was written by so and so or those kinds of things. So he's just like making up, those take place all over the world. Okay, California, Australia, London, New York, Paris, different places in France. Like it's all over. There is the thread of a story here. Okay, so in the French, after the French Revolution, when the new republic was being created, they decided that the beginning of that was, the beginning with the French Revolution was like year one. And they just wanted, forget the other calendar that the rest of the world is living by. Like, you say it's 1790, but we're going to say it's year one. And I'm not sure that that's exactly that I have a right year for year one. But anyway, something along those lines. This is going to be year one. And then they took the calendar and again, it was based on seasons. They didn't quite have like the right, I mean, like the days and the months, like definitely it didn't match up with anything else. It was very, very confusing for people who were trying to trade with other countries or, any kind of interaction with another country. It was very confusing. And I can't remember the name of the guy who came up with this calendar, but he was later beheaded. And anyway, and so it's interesting that John Baxter like found out about this and researched it and that sort of thing. And so once in a while, there's a little chapter that involves the calendar. There was one chapter where he's actually shopping at kind of a Paris version of a flea market or like place where you can kind of have your own garage sale kind of sort of thing. And his friend said, "Oh, I have all these prints over here. Do you want to come look at them?" And so he does. And I was just sure. I was like, "Oh, there's going to be this picture from the calendar. Like, it's going to be so cool." And no, there's nothing. There's nothing like that. He finds another print that he feels like he overpaid for. He hangs it in his home with his wife and their daughter, and people tell him that it's worth much more than he paid for it. What that has to do with the book, I just don't know. But as a reader, again, when you're expecting it to be, and I've read a lot of books that are a year of, living biblically would be one example. I think that's by A.J. Jacobs. And then he also wrote another one where he reads the whole Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I've read those. There's also, I've read one about like people who decided to be sheep farmers for a year. And there's a kind of almost like a subgenre of a year of doing this one thing, or my year with this, that sort of thing. I think I've even read one about a year working in a bookstore. So there's plenty of things like that, but this does not follow how those books progressed. And again, like it was just so random. It was just that's the best word I can use to describe it, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, there's stuff about that him and his wife going to like this spa and this island off of France, and I'm just like, I want to read about Paris. Talk to me about the Eiffel Tower, for crying out loud. Like, talk to me about the food. Talk to me about this calendar. I just talk about I really thought there was going to be a lot more weather-related stories in there. There were a couple, but not very many. And again, it was just like the way it just moved back and forth in time and back and forth in seasons. it was very, very confusing. And like I said, I'm mainly angered because when I look at this book, and again, you know, it's a lovely thing, but it's not. It's just, I think it's deceiving. Maybe that's what is really, really bothering me about it, is that it's not a year. It's all kind of like, this is like a mishmash. This is like a collection of little miniature essays, and there was like one little part that was long enough to be a book, and so they just fluffed the rest of the book with with these stories. So anyway, there's my rant. If you've read this book, I would love to hear what you think of it, or if you like books like this. I did do a video very early on in my channel's history on Bastille Day. It is a national holiday in France, but it's kind of like everyone tries to like pretend like the guillotine, like that didn't really happen. But Bastille Day, I did what I call a fake grade. So like I just pulled out a bunch of my favorite books related to France, and so I will link to a positive Paris book video for you to watch if you'd like. But anyway, it's this, don't do it, don't get it. And, Steve, thank you for sending this to me. As I said before, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be kind to authors who write bad books. Alright, BookTube, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.